All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you joining us today because, wow, do we have a genuinely fascinating corporate case study to unpack. Now, if you've ever spent time working in a standard office environment, you already know a fundamental truth. The real earth-shattering drama, it rarely actually happens in those dramatic boardroom shouting matches you see in movies. No, it happens in the quiet, completely mundane corners of the workplace. Today, we are analyzing a brilliant, intricate workplace drama from the Office Drama Stories universe, specifically episode 062, titled Anatomy of a Cover-Up, The New Hire Who Knew the Rules. We are going to completely break down how toxic office politics, hidden agendas, and sneaky administrative loopholes can be absolutely dismantled by simply looking at the data. I'm going to guide you step by step through this story, showing you exactly how a team of incredibly sharp professionals exposed a calculated cover-up. And spoiler alert, they didn't do it with loud opinions or aggressive debates, they did it with cold, undeniable facts. To fully appreciate the genius of this, we really need to understand the stakes of those quiet corporate corners. You see, the people who want to manipulate a company, they don't usually do it by blowing things up. Instead, they do it by quietly rewriting the rulebook when literally no one is looking. And that exact dynamic is what we are going to unravel today. To really set the stage for our entire analysis, we have to look at this perfectly articulated thought from Maya Carter, the strategy lead in our story. She says, the dangerous documents never look dangerous first. Just think about that for a second. When we picture corporate sabotage or a massive cover-up, our minds instantly go to the cinematic stuff, right? We imagine deleted hard drives, someone frantically shredding financial reports in a dark room, or secret midnight meetings in an underground parking garage. But as Maya so accurately points out, the absolute most dangerous tools used to control a narrative in the real world are the ones that blend seamlessly into the background. They look like routine forms, standard user agreements, or incredibly mind-numbingly boring policy updates. They completely rely on mundane camouflage. Today's entire story hinges on a single administrative document that was designed to do something deeply insidious, right out in the open. It was meticulously designed to look so ordinary, so totally routine, that anyone with a pulse would just skim it, sign it, and hand it back without a second thought. And that brings us directly to the central mystery we are going to unravel today. What actually happens when a basic onboarding checklist is weaponized? I want you to think back to your very first day at any new job you've ever had. You are highly vulnerable, right? You are handed this massive, intimidating stock of paperwork, or maybe you're given access to a portal of digital forms that you just have to click through. You're eager to please, you're totally overwhelmed trying to remember a dozen new names, you're navigating a new building, figuring out how to set up your email passwords, so you just sign exactly where you were told to sign. You naturally assume these documents are just standard corporate housekeeping. You assume they've been vetted, approved, and are entirely safe. But what if one of those innocent-looking little checkboxes was deliberately, intentionally placed there to strip away your fundamental rights before you even sat down at your desk? How would you ever know? You haven't learned the company culture yet. And more importantly, who inside the company would actually be tracking that kind of trap? Now, before we officially meet our new hire, we have to understand the specific rules of this corporate universe. And this brings us to the foundation of our case study, the Memory Charter. So what is it? The Memory Charter is a system of record-first accountability. It is a newly implemented, highly touted policy in this company designed to prioritize institutional truth over office politics. You see, in previous episodes of this overarching storyline, this company went through a massive, incredibly painful reckoning. They had dealt with huge systemic scandals. And to survive that crisis, they chose to rely on hard records rather than the shifting, convenient narratives of powerful executives. The Memory Charter is supposed to be the ultimate shield for regular employees. It is meant to ensure that data, system logs, and hard facts always hold more weight than someone's polished, well-rehearsed excuse. It's fundamentally supposed to protect people. But here's the thing about corporate reform. Reform isn't actually tested when the policy is happily signed at a big, celebratory company all-hands meeting. No, it's tested by the very first person who tries to quietly break it in the dark.
Section 1. The Dangerous Onboarding Checklist.
This is where our story truly kicks into gear and where the newly established Memory Charter gets its very first real-world stress test. Enter Sofia Lane. She is the company's brand new operations coordinator. She's walking into the office on her very first day, completely unaware that the old, toxic corporate habits are already trying to isolate her. During her orientation, Sofia is handed an onboarding checklist. Buried in that checklist is a clause asking her to sign away her right to request record access. Now, let's pause and really think about the massive implication of this. The entire company literally just fought a brutal battle to establish the memory charter, a system that strictly guarantees accountability through open records. And yet, the very first piece of paper handed to a brand new employee is asking her to voluntarily waive her right to ever actually see those records. It is a blatant, incredibly bald attempt to blindfold her from day one. The architects behind this trap know full well that a new hire is the absolute most vulnerable person in the entire building. They figured she would just blindly sign it and stay totally quiet just to avoid rocking the boat on her very first day. But here is what they didn't know. Sofia is incredibly careful. She had actually read the memory charter extensively before she even showed up for her orientation. So her internal alarm bells, they start ringing immediately.
Section 2. The standard corporate alibi.
Of course, when a trap exactly like this gets caught, the people who said it literally never just admit to it. Once Sofia and the rest of the team flag this incredibly suspicious checklist, the office immediately reacts the exact way toxic cultures always do when they are confronted with an uncomfortable truth. They desperately try to spin it. Talent operations casually dismisses the waiver, offering a very specific, official-sounding excuse. They wave it off and say, oh, it's just an old template that nobody actually enforces anymore. It's perfectly designed to sound like a completely harmless administrative oversight, just a simple, silly glitch in the system. But watch what happens next. Almost immediately, executives connected to a reputation consultant named Rochelle Harlan start deploying broader corporate jargon to completely smother the issue. They start throwing around these incredibly soft, polished words like alignment, healing, business continuity, and culture reset. This is so important to catch. They are actively weaponizing therapy language and the language of progress to literally erase a very real policy violation. They desperately want everyone in the room to focus on the concept of healing so that nobody actually stops to look at the data. They are intentionally trying to make the cold, hard facts seem soft by surrounding them with soft, reassuring words.
But our team? They refuse to accept these polite, incredibly polished excuses. As Elise Warren, an independent board member in the story, so sharply points out, closure without memory is just a new cover page. Wow, what a profoundly powerful statement. Elise instantly recognizes the extreme danger of all this corporate jargon. Think about it. If they just sweep this old template excuse under the rug in the name of moving forward and healing, they haven't actually fixed the toxic culture at all. Not even a little bit. They've literally just put a new clean cover page on top of the exact same corrupted book. If you do not aggressively remember and document exactly how the system was broken in the first place, you absolutely cannot claim to have fixed it. You are in reality just enabling the very next violation to happen under the comfortable guise of starting fresh.
Section 3. Following the digital footprint. And that outright refusal to just move on and accept the fluffy excuses is exactly what launches our team into immediate action. The story shifts gears heavily right here. We move completely away from listening to subjective opinions in a boardroom, and we dive straight into tracking cold, hard data. They stop arguing with the executives. Instead, they start interrogating the system itself. And it all kicks off with Sofia doing something incredibly basic but powerful. She reads the fine print and the metadata that the experienced people simply dismiss as standard. This perfectly, beautifully illustrates the absolute power of fresh eyes in a workplace. When you've been at a company for years and years, you develop this sort of institutional blindness to the routine. You literally stop reading the templates because you just assume you already know what they say. You've seen them 100 times. But Sofia, she hasn't learned what the company considers an inconvenient question yet. She hasn't been subtly conditioned to look the other way. So she looks at this restrictive document and asks the most logical but devastatingly sharp questions. Who changed this? When exactly did it change? And who approved the change? These are the exact specific questions that people in power desperately avoid when the answer happens to have a name attached to it.
To actually answer Sofia's brilliant questions, Maya Carter, our strategy lead, does something incredibly methodical. She builds a proof map. Now, this is exactly how you turn abstract, whispering suspicions into undeniable, terrifying facts for those who are trying to hide. Maya doesn't run around chasing people down for dramatic interviews. She follows the systems. She maps out the object, which in this case is the checklist itself. She tracks the owner, documenting exactly who touched that specific file. She logs the timestamp, noting the precise minute they touched it. She identifies the beneficiary, asking the crucial question of who actually gains power from this restrictive waiver being signed. And finally, she highlights the missing approval, clearly showing who bypassed the normal required organizational checks to get this document in front of Sofia. By meticulously laying out the data this way, Maya is giving fear a very specific, undeniable shape. The methodology is absolutely brilliant because it removes human emotion entirely. The sequence of these columns starts to tell a comprehensive, completely airtight story before anyone in the room even has to open their mouth to confess. As Maya builds this rigorous airtight map, she relies heavily on Nina Ross, an executive assistant. And Nina drops this absolutely incredible piece of wisdom. She says, people forget that background work still has foreground records. Listen, this is such a crucial takeaway for anyone trying to understand modern corporate systems. Bad actors who try to manipulate documents often treat administrative tasks as if they are completely invisible. They honestly think because the work is happening quietly in the background, things like booking a hidden conference room, routing a draft policy through a private server, scheduling an off-the-books phone call, or hitting print on a restricted document, they think that no one sees it. It genuinely feels like stealth mode to them. But Nina knows the reality. Every single one of those supposedly invisible actions generates a visible, highly trackable receipt. The system is literally always logging, always. And those background records, they are exactly what is about to make the official corporate explanation completely, embarrassingly fall apart. To get those final, concrete receipts, the team turns to Jordan Price, the IT audit specialist. And I love this part, because Jordan isn't doing any kind of flashy Hollywood movie hacking here. There is no magical software rapidly breaking through a glowing green mainframe. No, Jordan simply pulls and translates the raw system logs. He pulls the user logins, he pulls the records of the changed text fields, and he pulls the routing approvals. When he is inevitably confronted by panicking executives who claim that logs need interpretation or try to argue that data can be misleading, Jordan just calmly presents the raw exported data. He proves definitively that truth isn't subjective. It's a sequence. Somebody explicitly logged in, somebody manually altered the text of the waiver, and somebody officially approved it. There is literally no interpretation needed when the digital footprints walk straight up to the culprit's door. Section 4, the decisive timestamp reveal. All of this methodical, relentless data gathering leads us directly to the climax of our investigation. The trap has been identified. The fluffy, jargon-filled excuses have been made. The data has been pulled. And now, the absolute truth is about to be placed right on the table in front of everyone. But right before they drop the final piece of evidence, Aisha Morgan, an analyst on the team, asks the room a question that completely changes the temperature of the atmosphere. She asks, who benefits if this stays classified as a harmless error? By asking this, Aisha cuts right through that thick corporate fog. She stops the executives from retreating into their soft feelings and forces absolutely everyone to confront the concept of intent. Because think about it. An old template sitting forgotten in a legacy folder? Sure, that is a harmless error. But if someone deliberately dusted off that old template with the specific goal of silencing a new hire, then it is a calculated, targeted attack. So the lingering question remains, who actually benefits from Sofia Lane being silenced on day one? The answer to that profound question is revealed entirely by the timestamps that Jordan and Aisha uncover. Let's really look at the sequence of the trap here, because this is the smoking gun. Point 1. Yes, the original template was created years ago. That part of the official corporate excuse, it was technically true, which is exactly what made it such a ridiculously good lie. But Aisha compares the file history and sees, point 2, this specific restrictive waiver was secretly refreshed and updated late at night, literally the very night before Sofia joined the company. And point 3 is the very next morning when that freshly updated, highly toxic trap was handed directly to Sofia and her orientation packet. The timeline proves without a shadow of a doubt that it was absolutely no glitch. Just think about the sheer audacity and the malice required here. You do not accidentally update a highly restrictive waiver in the middle of the night, right before a new employee walks through the lobby doors. It was a deliberate, incredibly calculated move to bypass the newly established memory charter and maintain absolute control over the incoming staff. Armed with this, Maya doesn't even need to raise her voice. She doesn't need to get into a heated argument with the executives who, just moments ago, were confidently preaching about healing and alignment. She simply looks at them across the table and delivers the ultimate checkmate. She says, I am not asking you to trust me. I am asking you to trust the record you created. Boom. The collapse of the corporate alibi is total and absolute. The very system they arrogantly thought they could manipulate in the dorg left a bright, glowing, undeniable digital footprint. One page of the system log cleanly closes one excuse. One timestamp shuts down another. They are completely trapped by their own data, and no amount of high-priced public relations spin can rewrite the timeline that they themselves authored.
Section 5, Systemic Repair over Silence.
So the bad actors are finally caught. The truth is fully out in the open, but the story absolutely doesn't end there. Because in a truly functional, healthy organization, exposing the problem is only half the battle. The other, arguably more important half, is ensuring it can never, ever happen again. The executives, who are now thoroughly embarrassed and exposed, naturally want to handle this whole mess discreetly. They want to offer a quiet private apology to Sofia, quickly remove the waiver from the packet, and sweep the whole ordeal under the rug so they can save face. But Maya flatly refuses this, operating on a crucial, foundational philosophy. She says, do not quietly fix what can publicly teach. This right here is arguably the most important lesson of this entire explainer. The psychological urge to save face is incredibly strong in corporate leadership. But a private fix? That might only make the executives comfortable for today. It leaves every single future employee completely exposed to the exact same loophole tomorrow because the organization itself learns absolutely nothing. Real, meaningful repair has to outlive the meeting. It has to be visible to all the people who weren't in the room.
So instead of a quiet handshake and a hushed behind closed doors agreement, Maya and Linda, the HR manager, take specific, highly actionable steps to build true systemic protection. First, they create a dedicated permanent employee rights page, cementing the memory charter directly into the actual onboarding flow so it can never be bypassed again. Second, they distribute a crystal clear record access explainer so that every single person in the building understands exactly what data they are legally entitled to see. And finally, they require a signed acknowledgement of these rights that is entirely visible to all employees. They took the very administrative process that was used as a sneaky weapon against Sofia, and they permanently re-engineered it to be an unbreakable shield for everyone who follows her. Making these sign-offs visible changes the company culture entirely. It acts as an organizational immune system. They didn't just punish one bad actor, they wrote the lesson directly into the system's DNA. Which brings us to the absolute core takeaway of this entire case study. A new employee is easiest to silence when the rules are hidden from her. A safer culture teaches the rules out loud. The people who desperately wanted to bypass accountability knew that confusion and obscurity were their absolute best weapons. If Sofia didn't know her rights, she obviously couldn't exercise them. By moving those rights out of the fine print and putting them right into the foreground, the team didn't just solve one isolated HR problem, they fundamentally shifted the power dynamic of the entire company. Transparency isn't just about being honest or having good morals, it is a highly tactical, structural defense mechanism against corporate manipulation. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, highly provocative thought to consider about your own workplace. Ask yourself right now, are the rules in your office hidden or are they taught out loud? Really think about it. When you started your current job, were the boundaries and your fundamental rights made crystal clear on day one? Or did you have to blindly navigate a confusing maze of unwritten rules, whispered warnings, and old, outdated templates? It's a question well worth asking yourself today, because as we've clearly seen, the true health of an organization isn't defined by its polished mission statements or its carefully worded press releases. It's defined by the actual records it keeps, the metadata it meticulously tracks, and the robust systems it builds to protect its most vulnerable people. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive today. I really hope this case study has given you a brand new perspective on the true, unyielding power of a digital paper trail. Keep asking those inconvenient questions, and I'll see you next time on The Explainer.